Hey guys, so it has been a while since I've sat down to record, and today I'm not going to read a story. I'm just actually going to tell a scarier story that happened to my mom because, I don't know, why not? I've kind of been sucked into these types of stories lately, so let's just go ahead and jump in. I have to start the story off with a little bit of background so you can kind of get a picture of what is going on. My mom is a 5'11" female. She is not someone you want to mess with, and right now she currently works at a bus station in my town. Now, I live in a small town in Wyoming, and she lives here also, obviously. But the place she works isn't a typical bus station, so normally you would go and buy a ticket and then your bus would take you wherever you want to go. Well, this one is actually for coal miners. So coal miners meet there every day and then they go on a bus and they have to travel about an hour wherever they're going and then they come back. So it's not like a regular bus station, it is a coal mining station. My mom is a dispatcher, which means that she gets to tell people where to go and what they need to do and who needs to be picked up next. And she's been at this job for quite a while now, I would guess about a year, and she really likes it. But one of the bad things about this job is she works very weird hours. A lot of the time she has to go in at 1 or 2 in the morning, and since I'm usually up at that time, she'll message me. But sometimes she doesn't have to go until 5. It just depends how they have her scheduled. I also want to mention that the town that I live in actually has a meth problem. Not a huge meth problem, but it definitely circulates here, and the place that it circulates the most at has a specific name I'm not going to say because I don't want people to find out where I live. But her work is about probably 3 blocks away from this place, so she doesn't work in the best part of town. One morning my mom was on her way to work, and it was just kind of a dark and creepy morning, and she was on her way at about 2 in the morning. And when she gets there, she is the only one in the entire building, and the way the building is set up is you walk in and there is a glass area that you can see through. So there's a place that people would normally sit because this bus station used to be a regular bus station. So you walk in and there's a glassed area and there's benches and then there's another door and then there's an office, and her office is there, but you can see through to where the glass area is. So she gets to work and goes to her office and sits down and starts doing her work and just kind of focusing on it. And my mom, she's someone that when you scare her, she jumps and kind of freaks out a little bit. She has a really bad startle reflex, and I love that about her because I loved to mess with her as a kid, but sometimes that doesn't come in handy, you know? So she's sitting at her desk just doing her paperwork, and she looks up and there is a guy standing in the glassed area, not actually inside the building but on the outside, and he's just staring at her, and she's sitting there like, what do I do? Can this guy see me? And so she decides to just keep doing her work and not do anything. And a few minutes later she hears a tapping on the glass, and she looks up and the guy is still standing there, but he had been gone for a while. He had taken a walk around the entire building, and then he came back and he started tapping on the window, and she looked up and kind of just stared at him for a minute because she wasn't about to get up and go let this guy into her office. And after a few minutes of him tapping on the glass, he starts motioning for her to come over to the door. And she shakes her head no, like, I am not going to go over there and answer the door. And so he keeps doing that. Well, she ends up having to call the police because she knows that she can't let this guy in, but she doesn't want him just wandering around. And after a while, the guy walks away and she hears the doors being pulled on all around the building. She hears him trying to find a different way in. And of course, she freaks out. So she calls the cops, and about 3 or 4 minutes later, the cops show up and circle the building, and he's nowhere to be found. This ends up happening to my mom a couple of times where people just are wandering around the building and she has to call the cops and go through the same process. But after a couple of weeks of this happening, her managers decide that it's a good idea to put in glass that people can't see through from the outside. And so a few weeks later they had that installed, and that was the first creepy experience that my mom had at her place of employment. The other story I want to talk about takes place at the exact same job, the exact same bus area that she works at, and this one is a little bit different of a setting. So she's not in her office this day, and it's about 5 in the morning this time. So when people come in, they have to call for her, and she has to go and push a button, and it raises this gate so that they can come in, and then she has to push the button and it lowers it, but it's not fast. It's a pretty slow process. It takes probably a minute to get it all down. One of the employees that drives a bus calls her, and he tells her that he's on his way in and that she needs to go and raise this gate up. And so she goes and does it, and she leaves it because she knows that he's coming in. And after she knows he's in, she goes back out to push the button to lower it. And as it's lowering, she sees a guy that had been wandering around the building just like the time before. And I don't think it was the same gentleman from what she has told me, but it's a different guy that had been walking around, and she is pushing this button, trying to decide if she should keep pushing it and then run or what she should do. But if she leaves it open, there's a chance he'll be able to get inside anyways. And so she is stuck holding this button down for the 60 seconds it takes to get down. Now, a lot can happen in that amount of time. She, of course, is panicking and wondering what she should do, but she keeps holding the button down, and as soon as it gets down, he's like walking toward her, like speed walking, and she takes off, goes in the building and locks the door. And right when she gets inside, there is a man standing behind her, and she screams. Come to find out later that that had been the coworker that had driven the bus in, so he just scared the heck out of her for no reason. But she ended up telling him about the gentleman that was outside, and they decided together that they needed to call the cops. And the cops came and they couldn't find him again. So the cops are not very reliable in these situations, is something you have to realize, because usually if they can see that you're making the motion to call the cops or anything like that, they're going to take off and they're just not going to be found. But we have all come to the conclusion together, just after talking about the situation and all the details, that these are probably some of the guys that are on some of the drugs that are circulating in our community and things like that. But anyways, I did just want to sit down and tell this story because I thought it was really interesting, and I didn't want to forget any of the details since she told me it pretty recently. I figured I would just sit down and talk about it and put it up on the internet. But thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this slightly short story time and you want more like this, or if you want me to keep doing the readings, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button down below and make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you have any suggestions of what you want me to do on this channel, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below, because I actually do listen to what you guys want. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you in my next story. Bye!